Sandy Yong's HTM journey began in 2006 when her interest in the event sector led her to the HTM program here at Ryerson. She made her mark on the program through her participation in many student groups and school programs, including International Women's Day, TedxRyerson, and the now defunct Hospitality Placement Center, to name a few. After graduating in 2009, Sandy's ambition led her to positions at Big Picture Conferences, the Carty Group, and now Bell Canada as a product manager. On the side, Sandy's passion for personal finance led her to publish the award-winning book, The Money Master, in 2019. Today, Sandy is a self-directed investor and keynote speaker who has successfully generated a six-figure investment portfolio and owns several rental properties. As a keynote speaker, she teaches female millennials how to invest in the stock market and real estate. Sandy has been featured in 125 plus media outlets, including Forbes, the Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, and NBC News. Most recently, she's been named top 10 from the past 10 by the TedxRyerson School of Management, and will be a speaker at the upcoming TedxRyerson conference. Hear her journey and more as we hit rewind with Sandy Yong. Okay, everyone, please welcome onto RHAA Rewind, Sandy Yong.
Hey guys, hi Andy and
Hi.
Chantel.
Hi, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. You're probably one of our most busiest alumni.
Just juggling a couple of balls in the air, but yeah, definitely happy to be here.
Yeah, sorry. I should have introduced you as the Money Master, Sandy Yong. My apologies. Yeah. All right. So let's get right into it. So first question we asked all our guests is, why did you choose to study hospitality in the first place, and why at Ryerson?
Yeah, so it goes back to when I was in high school and I had to figure out which school that I wanted to pursue post-secondary education. Back then, I knew that I had a passion for planning events. And so I was debating between going to George Brown College because they have a special events program there, and then Ryerson University. Um, because of the hospitality tourism program. And obviously, I went with the HTM program because I figured that I didn't want to pigeonhole myself so at such a young age just to focus on only events. And I figured that the HTM program, I would be able to learn a whole bunch of different aspects of the hospitality and tourism industry, and then be able to also, you know, own in on the event management courses that Judy Healy and Duff Shaw taught at the time. And I think it was a good decision for me just because it kind of gave me different insights on different aspects of the industry and what kind of roles and positions I could go into after I graduated.
Nice.
Wow, that was a very thorough background. I think it's really interesting too, especially because Andy and I are both into the events industry, so it's actually really interesting to hear you talk about when Duff Shaw and Judy Healy, who still teaches at Ryerson, were teaching those classes.
Yeah, I mean, I took all of her courses, and I was definitely into the special events course where I did win one of the awards for that program, and I definitely had a passion
Nice.
for it. And I joined student groups as well to get more event planning experience. And also, I think it was in my either third or fourth year, there was an internship program in the semester. So I was able to work for Carol Moxham, and at the time, she had the special events boot camp company. And so we planned a special event at the King Edward Hotel. And Carol
Wow.
Moxham, I believe, spoke at the RHTSS event back in 2020. So
She did, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, so you mentioned student groups. So we have on our list, you were part of the Frosh team, IWD, gold medal plates, ASIC Ryerson, the placement center. So how did you juggle all of that while still going to school and having like a personal life?
Yeah, I think I mean the first year I was still in my shell, kind of just getting a footing of what the university life was like and kind of mainly focusing on my studies, but I did gradually immerse myself in these student groups and organizations because I felt that it was really important to make friendships and network and learn other skills other than what you learn in the classroom. And so at the time, yeah, there was IWD, which was for the International Women's Day. We held an event in March, and then we also had World Tourism Day. That's what I was trying to remember. We also did a World Tourism Day event, and then even Isaac Ryerson. That's still around because I know a Ryerson student who's part of that organization. That was really cool because we would help students find internships abroad and also come here for internships to Toronto. And then the Hospitality Placement Center. So I don't know. I don't think you guys have heard of it because it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I
No.
Um,
was gonna ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
yes,
only known about it a little bit because it used to be like a center where students could come and get placements from what I know.
yeah, exactly. So what you would probably know it as today would be the Career Center. And I don't know if
Okay.
Anthony Hopkins still is a part of that, because he used to be like one of my professors. And so, yeah, before all of the 4 programs in the Ted Rogers building kind of amalgamated to the Career Center, we had our own hospitality placement center on the 3rd floor. And for 2 years, actually the first year I was kind of helping out one of my classmates, and then in my 4th year I took over as president, and then I helped to plan the annual career fair. So we had over 40 employers having exhibit tables in the TRSM, like one of the hallways, and it would be like a one like full day event where students can bring their resumes and apply for most of them were like summer jobs, or if they were nearing graduation, they could also apply for full time employment. So that was like the big event that we had planned. And then we would do like workshops throughout the year as well. But yeah, back then it was mainly focused on the HTM students.
Wow. So it sounds like you had a lot of different involvement at Ryerson, like different parts. Do you have a favorite memory of that?
Oh man, a
Yeah, it's okay.
favorite memory. Oh, I would say uh, there's so many fond memories that I have. But, if I were to pick one, I would say, when I was graduating, um, and then the faculty and staff had to choose 1 or 2 students, at the top of the class, but not just like education or like academic wise, but a student who also helped out within the Ryerson community and participated a lot in different organizations. So I was chosen as the Dennis Mock Award winner, along with a fellow classmate of mine. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Dennis Mock Award. It's like one of the most like prestigious awards. So I think that was like uh, just like a rewarding feeling to know that like I had contributed to helping out in different events and student organizations, and yeah, just making a lot of connections and just making the most out of my 4-year program.
That's incredible.
Nice. Speaking of memories, so you were at HTM when they were making the transition, like when how do I say this? When the TRSM building was opening, right? I believe you were like one of the very first classes to be in that building.
That's
So tell us
right.
about like the transition and how it was like back then. Because for those who don't know, HTM used to be in its own separate building, closer to the campus near Gold Street and everywhere.
That's right. Yeah. Called it the ILC or the ILC, which is the
Yes.
International Learning Center.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my first year, most of my classes were in the ILC building,
Mm.
which is I don't know if they've done renovations since then, but at the time it was like still pretty outdated and whatnot. But it was nice to have our own building. And then in my second year, so this was like 2006, and we opened up the Ted Rogers School of Management building over by Young and Bay and Dundas, or in between Young and Dundas. And so I worked as a welcome agent, basically greeting all the students, staff, faculty members, and then um, also helping to answer any questions or giving directions or whatnot. So, like when you go up the escalators and there's like a kiosk on the 8th floor, things should be there right before you go into that fish bowl, or is
I
it
think it was the
seventh
seventh
floor?
floor, the kiosk.
seventh
Yeah.
floor.
Which I think
Yeah,
has since
so
been
that's
taken
where
out,
we
but yeah.
worked. Oh, okay. So there
Yeah.
was a kiosk there. And so we would
Yeah.
like pretty much kind of be like customer service reps, but known as welcome agents. And so that was kind of like the grand opening. So for the first couple of months, like I would work there, in between classes and yeah, just to help facilitate and make sure everyone knew like where they were going. So yeah, that was really a really cool experience to be part of like a grand opening of a building.
That's so
Yeah.
interesting because this year it's not the grand opening, but I would say the grand reopening of the building because there really hasn't been students in the building for, I guess, 2 years, and that's exactly what I'm doing in about a month is welcoming students back to campus. And you're right, the kiosk doesn't exist anymore, but we have the space there, which is just under the stairs now.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. All right. So you're plugging away at all the student groups and getting involved in the industry, and then you graduate in 2009. So what was like your first job in like the hospitality sector post graduation?
Yeah, so obviously, following my passion for events, I networked my way into my first full time job as an event coordinator with Big Picture Conferences, which is very much
Mm,
a small boutique firm. And one of the conferences that you might know is called the Canadian Hotel Investment Conference. And I say
mhm.
that one because there's a plaque outside one of the auditoriums in the TRSN building. You know those silver square
Chantal had a
plaques that
light
you
bulb moment. She's
I
like,
was
that you
thinking
wait.
I've
see?
seen that plaque somewhere.
Yeah, those square like silver square
Yeah.
plaques are
Mhm.
sponsored by different companies. So I'm pretty sure I walked by one day and I saw the Canadian Hotel Investment Conference. I was like, hey, I used to plan that conference. So, but we also planned other ones like the Canadian Restaurant Investment Summit, and I think there was yeah a tourism one as well. So um, we most of the conferences were in Toronto, but then sometimes we would travel out to Calgary or Vancouver or Montreal and host our annual conferences there. And mainly it was for C-level executives or like upper management, um, you know, uh, yeah, upper management staff who worked in the hospitality and tourism industry. So they'd come together and talk about industry trends. So that was a really
Wow.
cool experience to be part of.
What's it like planning like these large scale events? Like, like I guess my question is like what's the difference between like large scale conferences versus like, like basic like smaller like I guess like less than like 500 people events locally?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say that, with planning a big conference, and most of the time they were like 2 or 3 days long, at like a hotel venue, it obviously when you have a lean team, like there was really only 3 of us on the team, like we had to wear multiple hats and be able to meet like deadlines after deadlines. So oftentimes the weeks or the days leading up to the conference, I'd be working long hours, as I'm sure you guys can relate. Um, so yeah, just being on the ball all the time. But it's nice that like when you spend like a year out in advance to plan an event and when it actually happens before your eyes, it's just a really cool experience that like, people get to, network and they learn, new topics and you can see them socialize and it's just really yeah, just a really satisfying and rewarding feeling knowing that like, hey, like I put on this event for people.
Yeah, I can agree. I always said like one thing I like about events is that like you get to see yours and someone else's ideas like come to life. Like this was all just on paper and then, in a
Mhm.
week in a month like your vision is like come to life.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So you were at big picture conferences for about 3 years. And then you moved on to the Cardi group for a little bit. So tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about what you did there.
yeah, so at the Cardi Group, also, a relatively small company, but for me, it felt like a much bigger company because I went from three-person company to, like, about a 20-person company. And so I worked as a buyer there, and the Cardi Group pretty much was a firm that you could outsource to. So, say if you are the Ritz Carlton Hotel and you need to do a renovation, so you can hire the Cardi Group to help out, source like FF&E or OS&E. And then like we would work with the interior designers and like work with the suppliers and make sure like all the floor plans were correct and making sure that we were buying the right quantities for all the hotel rooms, or even we would even work on like the common areas like the fitness facilities or the spas and the lobby. So that was also um, a really neat experience, especially when one year we got to go on a staff trip to New York City because
Ooh.
many of our projects, hotel projects, were there. And so we spent a couple of days getting to meet some of the vendors, and then we got to tour some of the hotels that were in progress or that we had completed already. So that was yeah, just like fascinating to see like, oh, okay, like I look at floor plans all the time and like purchase orders, but to see this in real life and guests coming in and out, like that was yeah, that was really cool.
You spent a little bit of time there. I think it was 3 years again, 3 years again, and then you landed your current position in 2016 with Bell Canada. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I, spent good number of years working in the hospitality and tourism industry, and then unfortunately, I got laid off in 2015 when the projects were slowing down, and so I really took the time to do some self-evaluation and figure out like, what are my strengths and what are my skill sets? How can I make myself to be a really good candidate. And so when I landed my role as a product manager at Bell Canada, it was funny because when I looked back on the three jobs that I had obtained, all of them were through networking. Because like you think like the typical way to apply for jobs is like, oh, I'm just gonna go like on LinkedIn or whatever job websites
Indeed.
there are. Yeah, Indeed, and apply online, which is what I did over and over again. And I even went to an employment agency. I went back to the career center at Ryerson. I brushed up on my interview skills. And even though I had numerous, I think I had like a dozen interviews with various companies, it was only when I really tapped into my network and said like, "Hey," with a few key people that could help me. I said, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. These are my skill sets. This is my experience and whatnot." It was my connections and the people who knew me and what I brought to the table that they were able to advocate for me and help me land all those three positions in the industry. So when your professors say networking, 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 I also say that is true because I've learned that from experience.
And I think in all of your different companies and different positions, they've all been different positions. So I think you kind of really utilize your network in that case. Um, but even like speaking outside of that and as your career, what did you kind of take on like in your personal life? Because I mean, one of the biggest things is you obviously wrote a book, which we haven't touched on yet.
Yeah.
So I guess like outside of work, how did that kind of journey start, and like what did you kind of do outside of that?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting and incredible experience. So like yes, like I currently still work at Bell as a product manager, and it's been I think almost 6 years there. And so I find that like even though your full-time job is really important and you can learn a lot of skills, and for some people they may want to climb up the corporate ladder, I also think that it's really important that you focus on other activities outside of work. And one of them was Toastmasters, which is an a global organization where they can help you master your public speaking skills and even communication and leadership skills. And so I joined Toastmasters about 6 years ago or so. And I only joined it because I did hear about it from friends and coworkers, but it wasn't until I met my now husband, who was already part of Toastmasters, and he brought me to a meeting. And after the first meeting, I was like, "Wow, like this is so cool!" And so I found a club um, in Toronto, and there's like over 100 different clubs that you can join. And so that's when I started my public speaking journey. And so, like, you work on different aspects of public speaking. And then later on, like, fast forward to January 2018, and most people are setting New Year's resolutions. And my husband was like, "Hey, Sandy, I really want to write a book this year." And I was like, "Okay, great. Like, high five. Good for you. Like, I'll totally support you. And like, I'll cheerlead you on, and that's wonderful." But like, I had no intention of writing a book whatsoever. But then it wasn't until, like, I think we saw a Facebook ad or something on social media, and they're like, "Hey, there's like a book writing workshop, like boot camp." And so we went to it, and then that's where, like, it really opened up my eyes, because that's where I learned that publishing a book, like, one, if you really want to get into this public speaking realm of things and get paid to speak, um, people take you seriously if you are an author and have published a book. And then it also opens up doors of opportunities to everything from, like, now I'm freelance writing, being invited to podcasts like this one, to doing like brand partnerships, also obviously getting speaking gigs. So it's been a crazy, like, whirlwind experience, because after that, well, it wasn't until like 6 months later that we decided to partner with our book publisher. And then it was probably like, for me, I think I took like a year and a half to publish my book, which was like kind of on the fast pace, spending like all my evenings, weekends, just like writing, editing, marketing, like just going through like all the different stages of writing a book. And luckily, I had a really good team to help me out with that. And so, like, once it was published, yeah, it's been like crazy just getting like different types of media attention. And this later this month, so I'll be a TEDx speaker at the TedxRyerson U
Yep,
conference.
which we will get to that soon. Yeah. Which is
Yeah,
so
and
exciting.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like, even just like from all of this, like all of these extracurricular activities I've been doing outside of work, that has helped me not just in my personal life but also my professional life. Because like, I was just kind of like, how when you work, you could, you will be like working, and then like, nowadays, like, the whole gig economy, and people have side hustles and whatnot, and they try to keep it on the down low, and they don't really
Mhm.
want their employer to know. So like, I was kind of like tippy toeing around it. But like, once I told them I wrote a book, they were like super supportive, and just like totally ecstatic. And yeah, like, they've been like really, really like supportive of me. Even like when I had my book launch event, one of, I think, like, how Bellet's Talk just happened recently, like last
Mhm.
week. So then someone from the Bellet's Talk department was like, "Hey, like, we'd love to be a part of book launch event." So they helped to donate some merchandise for it. And so, yeah, it's just crazy how like all these different opportunities come up because of like my journey
Mhm.
through all this.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Okay, so like speaking about the book, by the way, Chantel and I are terrible hosts because we didn't read the book before this interview.
Okay, I should
But
have sent you the ebook, but
but um people might think, oh, HTM grad, this book is about hospitality. But no, it's about investing, hence
that's
the
right.
money master moniker. So tell us how you got into investing, or was this always like a big part of your life or interest before that?
Mhm.
Yeah, so like, okay, like, okay, in your program right now, is there a personal finance course that you can take currently?
No, I
No,
don't
No.
right?
think
Like,
so.
there's maybe
Yeah.
like corporate accounting, corporate finance. I took
Mhm.
corporate. I'm pretty
Revenue
sure I took
management.
corporate finance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the mainstream business course, there's like one specific course where you can do like investing in like a simulation type.
Yeah, there was only like corporate finance, corporate accounting, all that stuff. And really like that just teaches you how to, deal with that in like the corporate world, but not in like your personal like financial situation. And so like when I graduated, worked in the hospitality industry, I was making a modest salary. And so like I paid off my student loan as soon as possible. One through like scholarships I applied through during my 4 years at Ryerson, and then also working part-time as a research assistant and teaching assistant, and then paid off my loans. And then I was like, okay, like, most people, work towards buying a house or a condo. And then also they want to have a wedding, and then maybe I will have kids one day and save for retirement. So I kind of took those big milestones that, I wanted to achieve. I know it's not for everyone, but those are the goals that I wanted to achieve. And then started thinking like, okay, how many years do I want to accomplish this by? How much do I need to save? And obviously, like even down payment these days is just astronomical, and living in
Ooh,
Toronto is really expensive.
yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yeah, like I need to start investing in the stock market. And like I knew a little bit, and my dad would kind of like help me out like here and there with like mutual funds. And then back then, like I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was just like, okay, I'll just go and walk in one of the big banks, and like, here's my money. And then they give you a questionnaire, and they're like, oh, this is what your risk profile is, and like, oh, and then by the way, like these are your mutual funds that you should buy. And I was like, okay, sure. And then I signed on the dotted line, not knowing that one, like it wasn't diversified, meaning it was just like I think it was just in the energy or oil and gas sector, and it was only like in Canada. And then it was like super risky because I don't know, they thought I was just some 20 something year old and has like forever to like go through the way of the stock market. But then like months down the road, the fund ended up tanking, and I was like panicking because I was like, oh my God, there's all my hard-earned money. I was like, okay, I gotta sell. And I end up losing like, a couple $1,000s. And back then I was like, huh, like this is just like so sad. So then I was like, okay, there's gotta be a better way to like do this. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna start reading personal finance books. And just like studying it and just learning like how to do it myself. And so that's where I was like just really passionate to like just like be in control of my own finances.
Mhm.
And then like even then, like when I earned a six-figure portfolio when I was 27, but then like I felt like I couldn't even talk to anyone about it because like my coworkers didn't really talk about it. My friends were still paying off their student loans or like maxing out their credit cards and whatnot. And so I was like, oh my God, like people are struggling, yeah, living to paycheck to paycheck or like getting in debt. And yet like here I am, like I feel like I'm a successful DIY investor, but like I don't really have a platform to talk about it. So anyway, so then that's why when we went to the book seminar, and then I decided, I was like, okay, I'm really passionate about personal finance. I'm going to write this book so that I can teach young women how to invest in the stock market and also in real estate and become an entrepreneur, because I also studied entrepreneurship at Ryerson. So I was like, okay, like this is my way to teach other people how to do it, because in that way they don't have to make the same mistakes as I did. So that's why, like, that's how it all kind of came about, with like making my own mistakes. And then I figured it out myself, and I wanted to be able to pass that on and help teach other people to build wealth.
Mhm. It's actually so interesting seeing or hearing you say this, I guess, because I'm at a very weird age, I guess, where I'm still in university, and so half of my friends aren't interested in the stock market whatsoever. We're just focused on university. And my other half is like seriously following the stock market, will send their reference codes to their Wealthsimple app, investing in crypto and NFTs. And I'm kind of just sitting here like, where am I supposed to start?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I will definitely send you a copy of my book
Yes.
so then you guys can read it, and I'd love to hear your feedback. But it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I made it so that it's like super easy to read. I make it I explain things in layman terms and in a fun way, and also in like a workbook format. So then like at the end of every chapter, you'll have a checklist to be like, okay, these are the things that I can work on, to get my finances in order.
Yeah. I think even with pandemic right now, the interest in the stock market has grown, because a lot of people, like, they think that like the stock market was like out of reach to them. Like, the topic of financial literacy has also been a huge topic, because a lot of people are struggling with layoffs and pay cuts and stuff like that and losing their jobs. Um, so I think this book, you released it in 2019, so it was perfect timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
literally, oh my goodness. So I went to the RHTSS conference. I think it was like around February, right?
it was
2020,
it was
end of January.
January 31st, I think,
Oh,
or
Yeah,
February
yeah,
1st. Yeah.
yeah, right around that time. And then I had my book launch event at Joey's, just like right next to the Ted Rogers building. And so that was February 25th, 2020. So Julie Headley came out. Oh, and also Anthony Hopkins and Zen Liu,
mhm.
which I think
Oh,
Zen Liu like retired recently, or like not too
Very
long ago.
recently,
yeah.
Yeah. And so I was so lucky. I was able to like squeeze in my book launch event. And then, a couple of weeks later, like everything shut down.
Yeah.
So
But that's
yeah.
okay because everyone had their book at home that they can read.
That's right.
Yeah. So on the topic of investing and jumping off of Chantel's point, should students invest now or should they wait till like after graduation? Like what do you think is the best time for a student to like get involved in like investing in stock markets and stuff like that? Should they choose to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I have to start off with it depends on your
Mhm.
personal situation because every student might be dealing with different circumstances, like whether you are like live well. I was going to say whether you're living at home or living on campus, but I don't know if international students, they're probably not. Anyways, so
Yeah.
I think that in general, if you are in a situation where you are perhaps like uh, on the right track to paying off your student loans, and either maybe you are able to do a co-op or internship. I don't know how that works out during the pandemic. I don't know if there has been any co-ops or internships like.
Um, yes. I mean, I've been very fortunate that I've landed both of my co-ops during all of this. It's just obviously I think a little more limited than
Uh-huh.
previously. But co-ops and internships definitely still are existing. They're just
Okay.
varying now.
Right. Yeah. And I guess some are either unpaid or some are paid. And so if you do get a paid internship, or even if you do work part time during school, like I worked on campus, but
Mhm.
then some people can pick up other jobs. Then if you have like enough income that you can set aside to invest. And let me just backtrack a little bit because once you have student loans, which could be in the tens of thousands, if not more. Um, so you probably want to tackle that first. Also, make sure you don't have like huge credit card debt because I know like when you turn 18, it's like, woohoo, like I get my own credit
It's free
card. But like,
money.
yeah, some people think like, yeah, I can just like rack up the credit card bills, but like, hey, like don't just pay the monthly balance. You should pay it in full every month, because it will hurt your credit score, especially like later on in life when you want to get a car loan or a mortgage. Like it will really impact how much you can get from the bank. But also you also want to have an emergency savings fund set aside. So like other financial experts will say, yeah, you should have like 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in an emergency savings fund that saves in a bank account that you can easily access. You don't want to be like investing your money as your emergency savings fund. um, so you want to make sure you have that. And then I would say like, okay, if you have that extra disposable income, then you can start investing money. And even like as simple as going with like going with a robo advisor like Simple. You don't need that much money to invest, right? You can maybe put like $20 into it like every week or whatnot. Like whatever you can afford, you can just start saving little by little. And then over time you'll see like, hey, like it's really growing. And nowadays it's very easy for anyone to invest, whether it's index funds or ETFs or whatnot, GICs. There's so many options there. And um, yeah, I think nowadays with technology, it's making it more accessible for young investors. But also, like you had said, Chantel, like NFTs and crypto and whatnot, like you do want to be careful in what you invest in and not put all your eggs in one basket, especially risky, speculative, volatile investments like cryptocurrency and NFTs. Like, yeah, I see that all the time. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to get into that space, but yeah, make sure you do your research and know what you're getting yourself into and understand that there are risks involved.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Those were great tips.
I'm taking
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah. So speaking, one last thing about the book, I saw on our notes that it's also somewhat of a fundraiser because for every book sold, you donate $2 to the CAMH Foundation. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yes, that's right.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about that and why did you decide to kind of make this a fundraising opportunity?
Yeah, so this is something just really close to me, and I've for me, like growing up, my late mother was diagnosed with severe mental illness, and so it was something that impacted our family for decades, and it was just like really tough, especially like in the Asian community. It was just really taboo to talk about it, and so like
Hmm.
like even like our relatives didn't understand it and our neighbors didn't understand it, and I felt like I couldn't even talk to some of my best friends about it for so many years. Like many of them didn't even know what I was going through. And so like it was really tough for me as like going through my youth and going through school, and just not and it just kind of feel like I was alone in that. And so I wanted to partner with CAMH because they definitely help families who have been impacted by mental illness, and they do a lot of groundbreaking research, which is fantastic. And and so it's just something that I feel like it's important to help talk about it more, and especially when we have events like Bell Let's Talk Day that takes place annually. It's something that like I want to be a part of breaking down the barriers and making it so that it's no longer taboo to talk about mental health, especially during the pandemic, right? Like, we've been stuck at home for like 2 years, and like I'm sure like going through school like virtually, like I don't know, I feel like it's tough, right? And you guys are kind of like robbed of that like in person campus life. And there's studies that show like many people are experience depression and anxiety, loneliness, and so it's just my way to give back to to help with mental health research and to help those families in need, and just a way to pay tribute to my late mother.
Oh,
Oh, that's really nice. That's really sweet. Post graduation, juggling your job, juggling all your side hustles. You've also have taken the time to like give back to the Ryerson community and the HTM family. You participated in a lot of alumni events. You spoke at our conference, um, and as well coming up your TedxRyerson TED Talk. So how did that come about?
The TED Talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm part of I get emails from the Ted Rogers Alumni Association or group, and so they had a call for speakers back in the fall. And when I saw that, I was like, "Hey," I'm like, "This is pretty cool." Like I've been part of Toastmasters for many years, and I've done like several speaking gigs. I do podcasts, like just a lot of speaking, and so I felt that with my experience and expertise, that I would be able to kind of share about financial independence and also about mental health in my TEDx talk. And so when I applied, yeah, there were many applicants, and then they narrowed it down to a short list where you had to do a video interview, and then after that they made like the final list. And so I was one of the top 10 speakers chosen to speak at the conference later on this month. And it's I probably haven't, like, I've never rehearsed so many times or edited a speech so many times my entire life. But it's definitely a good learning experience, and it helps me it helps I'm like challenging myself and growing as well. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
I mean, definitely something I think unexpected throughout this pandemic. And I know, especially in our industry, we talk about it a lot. But how did you sort of navigate your career and kind of pivot, if you will, through the pandemic from what a typical day used to look like to what it kind of looks like now?
hmm Yeah, so I will preface it by saying that I am currently on mat leave for a year because I had my son back in June of 2021.
Wow.
So I'm
Congratulations.
thank you. And so now it's like literally I went from like so pre-pandemic, I was working in one of the Bell offices in Toronto, and then all of a sudden in March 2020, it was like, like blink of an eye, and we were all working from home, and that was quite a bit of a transition, I'm sure for many people. Uh, and there was pros and cons to like working from home, but luckily, like I did get to experience my pregnancy while at home, and I say that like in a good way, just because like I took the TTC to work all the time, and like I wouldn't want to like be taking the subway and the bus while like being pregnant. So I'm glad I didn't have to like endure that. And so now yeah, so I go from like working on a laptop to like now playing with my son all day, all day long, which is quite a bit of a transition. I would say that like it's tough in a sense that like you go from a social environment like with your coworkers who see like all the time and talk to all the time, even if it's just on video calls or phone calls. And so like having that like all of a sudden kind of disappear in a way. Like I still keep in touch with them, but obviously not to the same degree as working full time.
Mhm.
So that's been a bit of a transition. But luckily, I have like close friends and family that I also keep in touch with during my maternity leave, and I'll be going back this summer and kind of picking up where things left off, and hopefully continuing to help out on the Bell TV side of things. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Like hearing your entire journey from Ryerson to where you are today, you went from events, and then you went to conventions, renovations, product managing, to now investing. So like you've touched
Mhm.
like all the industries. So did you ever imagine, your career ending up what it is today?
No, definitely not. And it was funny because yeah, because Judy Healy, like, obviously, like, she really wanted me to continue to pursue events. But it wasn't until she came to my book launch where she saw, like, oh wow, like, Sandy, this is like your calling to help educate millennials and the
Yeah.
Gen Y on personal finance. So even for her, it was kind of like an adjustment because I was one of her star students in events, and I still have a soft spot for events. Like I was lucky, I was able to have my wedding. Well, this is like 2017, so pre-pandemic. So like whenever I have like, oh, and then at work, I was part of the virtual social committee
Mhm.
where we planned virtual events to engage staff. Um, whether it would be like, yeah, different activities. So I still get to plan events just on a much smaller scale, typically, but
Yeah.
it's fun,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's like enough events to like scratch that itch at
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We are winding down the conversation now. But before that, Chantel has a little game that she likes to play with all her guests.
I do. It's basically rapid fire, this or that. No pressure. Just, answer whatever first comes to mind.
Okay, cool.
Okay, here we go. So, hotel or Airbnb?
Oh my God. Airbnb.
Okay, dine in or take out?
I would say dine in because I've done too much takeout lately.
Very coffee or tea?
Tea.
Music or podcast?
Oh, okay. So I listen to a lot of like kids songs now for my son. But I do enjoy listening to podcasts to keep my brain stimulated.
Morning bird or night owl?
Oh, so I used to be a night owl, obviously, like during like my university days, but now I'm a morning person.
Of course. City lights or the countryside?
A city.
A night in or a night out?
Um, a night in, because now that I'm a parent, if I want to have a night out, I have to like ask my in-laws to babysit my son.
And the last one, stocks or real estate?
Oh, stocks. I mean, no, real estate's really lucrative too, but it's more work.
That is true.
Yeah. All right. Um, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Oh, okay. Yeah, in 5 years' time, well, oh my God, I'm gonna sound old, but I'll be like in my 40s then. So hopefully, so my husband and I are working towards financial independence, and so basically it means is that you have enough wealth where you can support yourself without having to like ever work again. Um, but I mean, obviously, like we'll probably be working at some capacity, whether it's continuing our own businesses, or we can, continue working at our full-time jobs if we like, still continue, still have a passion for it. But I think we also have like other goals that we want to pursue and places we want to travel in the world because we haven't been able to travel for the past 2 years. So, and obviously, spending a lot of time with our son and helping him, learn new skills and teaching him financial skills.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he's looking because he has the money master as his mom.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And finally, what is one piece of advice you would give to any student studying hospitality right now?
Well, I mean, if you look at me, I came from hospitality, but now I'm not really in the hospitality industry anymore. And so I would say that, and you never know, like I might end up being back in hospitality one day.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that it's important to evaluate your own skills and, um, because I think the hospitality and tourism industry, it's going to take several years for them to kind of get back to the pre-pandemic days, right? Even restaurant workers, like they don't even want to go back and work in the restaurant. So I would say like look at what your skill sets are and think about what skills are transferable to another industry, because like the worst thing you want is to be relying on government assistance for like years, and you want to be having a fulfilling career. And so for me, like when I think about it, event planning, it was about being detail oriented, and also attention to details, time management skills, wearing different hats, working with vendors, suppliers, like interpersonal skills, all those things. And so I was able to transition out of the event planning industry and go into procurement and then into product management, because a lot of it was project management based. And so that's how I've been able to continue my career path, but just in a different industry for the time being.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's don't pigeonhole yourself, I
Mhm.
guess, because like reflecting on it, like the HDM program, like it does cover a lot of skills and teaches a lot of skills that are transferable to many different industries.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So once again, Sandy, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us on RHAA Rewind. You can follow Sandy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Her info is on the screen here. It will also be in the wow, in the podcast description. Wow, my brain blanked. As well, you can always follow RHAA on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at RHAA Rewind, and on LinkedIn and YouTube, and it's just our full name spelled out. Yeah, awesome. Wishing you nothing but continued success, and good luck on your TED Talk on this coming February.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.